Friends, the reason why Mormons will never make it to godhood is because God says so. God says, before me there was no God formed, and there will be none after me. I am the only God. God says, I am the first, I am the last. Besides me, there is no God. I talk with hundreds of Mormon missionaries every year, and we've seen hundreds of them leave the Mormon church and come to know Jesus Christ. And we invite them to our home for dinner, especially at Christmas time. Mormon missionaries, when you get to know them, most of them hate what they're doing. They're out on a Mormon mission for 2 years. They're cut off from their families. They're not allowed to call their families or call home except twice a year on Mother's Day and Christmas. Most of them are away from home for the first time. They're lonely. And so every Christmas we call them up and invite the Mormon missionaries in town to come for dinner at our home. And a year ago, this last Christmas, we had invited 3 Mormon missionaries for dinner. Give them a warm meal and a little family loving. And we sat down and we went through this for several hours, talking about Mormonism. I said to them, I said, do you guys know that the doctrine that you can become a god is in the Bible? He said, it is? I said, yeah, it's in the Bible. Turn to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. And the serpent said to the woman, you surely shall not die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you'll be like God. Friends, the reason why I weep and why I cry and why I care so deeply for Mormons as people. Friends, you have to understand that the same lie that got Adam and Eve cast out of the Garden of Eden is the same lie that is going to keep Mormons out of heaven. Eat of the fruit. You can be God yourself. God says in Romans 1, professing to be wise, they have become fools. They've exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God who does not change for an image in the form of corruptible man. God says, before me there was no God formed, and there will be none after me. I am the only God. You know, you got to stop and ask yourself some basic questions. Like, who was that angel of light in 1820 telling Joseph Smith that all the Christian churches were wrong and that all the teachings of Christianity were an abomination, and that he could become a god himself? You know, you will never see a cross on a Mormon church. You ever notice that? You will never see a cross on a Mormon temple. In fact, Mormons dislike the blood and cross of Christ so much that when Mormons take communion, they use water instead of grape juice or wine because they want no representation of the blood. They say it's foolishness. You'll never see a cross on a Mormon temple. The only thing that you'll see on top of every Mormon temple around the world. What sits on top of the Mormon temple up here? What's that? You've seen the temple in Atlanta? Salt Lake City? What sits up on top? There's no cross. The only thing that sits up there is the angel of light, who they call Moroni. The angel of light who told Joseph Smith that all the teachings of Christianity were an abomination and he could become a god himself. I started wondering a few years ago who that angel of light was sitting on top of the temple in Atlanta, Georgia, and Salt Lake City, Utah. So I decided to do some research. And I decided to first go to their own books. So I first went to Doctrine and Covenants, one of the standard works of the Mormon Church, and I opened the front page, and the first page has what is called the explanatory introduction. In the explanatory introduction, the third paragraph right here says, in September 1823 and at later times, Joseph Smith received visitations from Moroni, a what? An angel of light, who revealed the resting place of the ancient record from which the Book of Mormon was afterwards translated. This was in the Doctrine and Covenants for 140 years. They've just recently taken it out of the new editions since I've been exposing this. Makes you wonder what they're trying to cover up. If I was a Mormon, I'd sure wonder why they take that paragraph out after 140 years. Get any earlier edition. This one is from 1974. It says, Joseph Smith received Mormonism in the Book of Mormon from Moroni, the angel of light, who now sits on top of every Mormon temple around the world. So that's interesting. I wonder who that angel of light is. So I decided to go to their own theological dictionary, Mormon Doctrine by Bruce R. McConkie. It's a theological dictionary in alphabetical order, and we had these 3 Mormon missionaries sitting in our living room a year ago, and they evidently had found out who I was, so they invited the mission president to come with them, and the 4 of them were in my living room, and I asked them, I said, do you guys know who Bruce R. McConkie is? They said, oh yeah, he's our leading theologian. I said, you ever heard of Mormon Doctrine? They said, oh yeah, that's our theological dictionary that defines all the terms for us. I said, well, here's a copy of it. I said, why don't you look up in your own theological dictionary, Angel of Light, since Joseph Smith says he got the Book of Mormon and Mormonism from the angel of light that sits on top of your temple. Here's the dictionary. Look it up and tell me who the angel of light is. So they looked up in their own theological dictionary, Mormon Doctrine, and under angel of light, there were only 2 words. Under angel of light, it says what? See devil. I said to these Mormon missionaries, I said, does that bother you? Does that bother you? Are there any Mormons here tonight? Does that bother you? That Joseph Smith claims he got Mormonism from the angel of light who sits on top of your temple in Atlanta? The angel of light who told Joseph Smith that all the teachings of Christianity were an abomination and he could become God himself? You look it up in your own theological dictionary, there's only 2 words. It says, see devil. If you're a Mormon, does that bother you? So that's interesting. I wonder what the Book of Mormon says. I asked these 4 Mormons sitting in my living room, I said, you guys believe the Book of Mormon? And after 3 hours, they weren't sure they did anymore. I said, why don't we look up Angel of Light in the Book of Mormon and see what the Book of Mormon says? So we looked up Angel of Light, and it said, turn to 2 Nephi 9:9. 2 Nephi 9:9 in the Book of Mormon. It says, and our spirits must have become like unto him, and we become devils, angels to a devil, to be shut out from the presence of our God, and to remain with the father of lies and misery like unto himself, yea, to that being who beguileth our first parents, who transformeth himself nigh unto what? An angel of light. The Book of Mormon says that Satan the devil, who deceived our first parents, is the angel of light. If you're a Mormon here tonight, does that bother you? You'll never see a cross in a Mormon church. You will never see a cross on a Mormon temple. The only thing that sits on top of the Mormon temple is the angel of light. He told Joseph Smith that all the teachings of Christianity were an abomination and he could become God. So that's interesting. I wonder what the Bible says about it. So we looked up angel of light in the Bible to see what the Bible says. It said turn to 2 Corinthians 11:14. 2 Corinthians 11:14 says, for Satan himself transforms himself into what? An angel of light.